So today, we're going to dive into two really pivotal moments from the Gospel of Luke. They give us these incredible glimpses into the early life of Jesus. And these aren't just, cute childhood stories. They are the absolute foundation of a destiny being forged. Let's get into it.
So think about this for a second. What can just 2 specific days in a childhood really reveal about a person's ultimate destiny? We're going to look at one day when he was an infant and another when he was 12. And as you'll see, these moments are presented as completely foundational, offering some profound clues about who he was going to become.
All right, so our first story kicks off in the bustling city of Jerusalem. We've got a young family, Mary, Joseph, and their infant son Jesus, making their way to the temple. Now, on the surface, they're just there for a common ritual, a standard religious duty required by their faith. Pretty ordinary stuff.
See, this wasn't something they just decided to do on a whim. The law of Moses was very clear. You had to present your firstborn son to God. So Mary and Joseph were simply doing their duty as devout parents. It's a moment totally grounded in tradition and ancient custom.
And this little detail about the offering, it's actually a huge clue. A pair of doves or 2 young pigeons was the sacrifice you made if you couldn't afford a lamb. This one small detail tells us everything about their humble, ordinary status. They were not a family with a lot of wealth or power, which makes what's about to happen next even more incredible.
So right in the middle of this humble, completely routine ceremony, the entire meaning of the day just flips. 2 strangers, people the family has never met, step forward because they see something in this child that nobody else does.
The first is a man named Simeon, and he is not just some random guy in the crowd. The text goes out of its way to tell us he's righteous and devout, a man who has spent his entire life waiting for the Messiah. In fact, he'd been promised he wouldn't die before seeing him, and he was guided by the Spirit into the temple at this exact moment. So yeah, him being there, right then, no coincidence at all.
So Simeon takes this baby in his arms, and what he says next is just mind-blowing. He doesn't just give a simple blessing. He declares that this tiny infant is the salvation that God has prepared for all nations. This is the very first public declaration that this child's significance is global, that his destiny goes way beyond his own people. But then, just as quickly, the mood completely changes. After talking about this incredible salvation for the whole world, Simeon turns to Mary with this chilling personal warning. It's such a stark moment of foreshadowing, connecting the child's grand destiny directly to his mother's future pain. Joy and sorrow, right there, presented as 2 sides of the very same coin. And right then, another witness shows up, a prophet named Anna. At 84 years old, she's basically a permanent fixture in the temple, a figure of constant worship and prayer, whose words would have carried immense weight. So when she also speaks about the child being the redemption everyone's been waiting for, it adds this powerful confirmation to everything Simeon just said. Okay, so let's hit the fast-forward button. We're jumping ahead 12 years for our second story. The infant whose destiny was just declared by others is now a boy, and we're about to see how that prophecy starts to unfold from within him. Yep, a whole 12 years have gone by. The family is back in Jerusalem once again for the annual Passover festival. This is a familiar trip for them, a yearly tradition they've probably made many times by now.
But this is where things take a turn. As the festival ends and these huge caravans of families start their journey home, a very human, very relatable drama begins. In all the chaos and the crowds, Mary and Joseph lose track of their son.
The story carefully lays out their growing panic over 3 absolutely agonizing days. For a whole day they travel, thinking he's just somewhere else in the group. Can you imagine the sheer terror when they realize he's not there? They spend a second day frantically searching, and then finally they have to turn back and return to the massive city of Jerusalem to find him.
And when they finally find him, that moment of relief is immediately followed by this profound mystery, because the scene they walk into is, well, it's not at all what you'd expect. He isn't lost, he isn't scared or crying. He is perfectly calm, sitting among the most brilliant religious teachers in the entire city. And get this, he's not just sitting there listening. He is right in the mix, asking them questions and giving answers that were so profound everyone was amazed.
This conversation right here is the absolute heart of the story. Mary asks a question any parent would ask, full of worry and relief. Why have you done this to us? But Jesus' answer, it comes from a completely different place. He almost seems surprised they were looking for him, asking, "Didn't you know I had to be in my Father's house?" For a 12-year-old kid to call the temple his Father's house with such authority, that is an absolutely astonishing claim. And that final line in the exchange, they did not understand. That is so crucial, because in this one moment, Jesus reveals this sense of identity, this connection to a different Father that is completely beyond what even his own parents can grasp. A gap has just opened up between them.
So, what are we supposed to make of these two moments 12 years apart? Well, when you put them together, you can see they form this single, powerful story about the dawn of an identity.
The progression here is crystal clear. As an infant in the temple, his destiny is something that's placed on him, spoken over him by Simeon and Anna. But 12 years later, back in that very same place, he's not a passive recipient anymore. He is actively starting to claim that destiny, that unique identity, for himself.
So here's the bottom line. These stories chart a journey from a prophecy declared from the outside to a purpose that's being understood from the inside. It's really a coming-of-age story about the intersection of normal human development and this dawning divine consciousness.
And that kind of leaves us with a bigger question, doesn't it? If you strip away the unique context, this ancient story touches on something totally universal, that journey we all take, from the expectations other people place on us to that moment we start to figure out and define our own purpose. It's a timeless question about identity, about calling, and about that mysterious process of becoming who you're truly meant to be.